Welcome back and welcome again to the Freshman 15 College Football Podcast. Right back alongside Tyler Moore talking college football and a whole lot more besides that. Actually, you know what? For this episode, based on what happened last week in college football, I'm going to let Tyler kind of lead the way so far. So, Tyler, man, what's going on, my dude?
Not too much, man. I've been humbled this past week. I thought my team was one of the top two teams in the country, and now they're sitting at number five. Waiting on hoping on a prayer to get into this college football playoffs.
Yeah, man. So basically last week, I mean, we talked a lot about Ohio State. Like I always say on the show, Ohio State kind of falls off to the distance because it was just taken for granted. We knew that
Mhm.
Ohio State was going to be there at the final finish. And basically, I'm going to let you kind of take off and lead the way since this was your game, your team at the Horseshoe with Michigan. As they say on Twitter, tweet through it. So I'll let you go ahead and talk through it before I chime in. So kind of give me your rundown of what happened in that game.
Yeah. So for like my perspective, I thought both teams came out swinging. And Ohio State held Michigan's rushing attack to 10 yards in the first half, which is great because Michigan is a great running team. But what really hurt themselves is they played basically cover zero the whole time, and there was no adjustment after that. So like the first real like where you're breaking the levee is when they hit Cornelius Johnson on that. I believe it was like an out route. He broke that tackle and he took it to the house. Cornelius Johnson ends up with 4 catches for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then they have another 45-yard touchdown. So you go into halftime, and you, like I said, your Michigan's sitting there at 10 yards rushing, and then they end up with like 250 yards rushing at the end, and they get 220 of it in the second half. It's because the levee breaks. Like I said, they're playing cover zero, which I don't like, especially when you've gotten beat over the top a couple times. If you switch to cover one, you play one safety high, and then you're watching. Then you're setting up your linebackers with a QB spy for McCarthy because he is a mobile quarterback, and then you're watching Edwards too. But you're running cover zero. Everybody's back is to the play, and those guys get beat, and there's no gap integrity. And Edwards took it to the house 2 times in a row, and it basically sealed the ball game for the Buckeyes.
And that was the thing that stood out. And for once and forever, I was off on a Saturday where I can watch the game. And I sat there watching the game. And the first thing I said, I had my little notes there for the show. And I'm like, it's a lot of explosive plays through the air. Not the running game so far, like to start that first half, but just the plays, like you said, the throw to Cornelius Johnson that he breaks the tackle, he scores. Okay. That's a bit of a tie turner for Michigan.
Yep.
Then he does it again for 75 yards. I'm like, okay, but even still, like they were home run plays. Like you're telling yourself, they can't keep doing this over and over again. There's no way they're gonna keep doing this over and over again. And then, like you said, second half, they start to find some traction in the running game. First, you have the run by McCarthy on the right sideline where he just kind of barrels the guy over, carries some guys, and you can start to see Michigan like we're feeling ourselves. You have that one, the touchdown to Colston Loveland to open the second half, and then it's like, okay, they start throwing the kitchen sink out with the play calling. Mm-hmm. The jump pass to Mullings, Mullings to Schoonmaker. I'm like, damn, they're pulling out all the stops to get this win. And then all of a sudden, like you said, they break the levees late with the touchdown run, and they were knocking on the door. And Donovan Evans, man, he just kicked it down to take the win. I was surprised, man. I was actually very, very surprised. But
yeah, in the first half, Ohio State, they had a chance to score multiple touchdowns, and they ended up settling for field goals. And then in the third, I think it's the third quarter, maybe beginning of the fourth, they have that 4th and 5 on Michigan's side. Like I think it's like at the 45-yard line, and Ryan Day decides to punt. And you have a Heisman candidate sitting right there. It's his to lose. You're in your own stadium. You let him take that, and that maybe that swings the game a little bit. But like my big thing is like I talked about, like not switching up your defense to help your DBs. Like if you just put that one safety back there, that deep post doesn't happen. Because McCarthy played the game of his life. He played out of his mind. The best game he's ever played. And it just happens to be against the Buckeyes, against a team that never adjusted. And as much as I hate to say it, like Jim Knowles, he was defensive coordinator from the Big 12 coming to the Big 10, and you kind of seem like a Big 12 defense.
Wow. Yeah. Straight shots, man. I mean, and we'll talk more about that game, what it means at large, because there's a lot riding on that game from a narrative perspective that'll lead us forward into the show and beyond that. And then to recap our upset pick last week, we had Iowa State and TCU. Uh, that game went as bad as anyone could have thought from the
Yeah.
opening whistle. And the TCU defense was all over Iowa State. Decker's a young quarterback, but he was back in high school. You saw the
Yeah.
pick six in that game,
Two.
and they were just suffocating them. And you called it before. You said, "Hey, TCU got the best defense in the conference. Look out for them." I'm like, Big 12, whatever. But no, seriously, they were really in that game. And then, I tabbed Xavier Hutchinson as the player of the game, the X factor. This dude is top 5 in receiving yards in the nation. The stat line was horrible. He walked away with 2 catches, 11 yards.
Yeah.
That's shutdown, man. Plus, the other guy, I think, who's their best player on defense is Will McDonald, non-factor. Didn't do a thing all day long, man. And I'm not a big fan of him necessarily, but Max Duggan had a good game despite not having to do much. It's just the running game took over. Kendra Miller once again. It was all about the TCU defense, man. I mean, anything you want to add to that blowout?
Yeah, so Duggan, he went 17 of 24 for 3 touchdowns, and he sat out the fourth quarter. Iowa State, their special teams. This is where they really messed up. They had a pair of missed field goals. They had to snap over their punter's head, which allowed TCU to get the ball deep in Iowa State territory, and then they had a kick returned inside their 40-yard line. So you're setting up short fields for an offense that's pretty good. And then Iowa State's offense, Decker throws 2 pick sixes. First one he rolls off to his left, he stares down the receiver, and they just jump it right away. Second one's thrown behind him in the middle of the field, gets tipped up, returned it for a touchdown. So like my big thing was they gave up field position, and that offense they make mistakes, flip the field position early. It's 24-0 in the beginning. At the end of the first quarter, the game's pretty much over. But like totality, Iowa State total yards was 330, TCU was 377. Iowa State 3 turnovers, TCU 0. So
And that was the game right there.
That's the game, the turnovers and short field. And you give a good offense that kind of field position, they're gonna run with it.
I'll burn you. So to kind of tie it back to this week, or last cherry on top of last week, I should say, the segment, man. The segment. Who in college football either helped or hurt themselves the most? Your thoughts?
So I want to say the Buckeyes, but there's still a chance that they can get in. But right now I'm going to say it's the Trojans. They control their own destiny. They're taking care of business. They have a big game against Utah. We're gonna talk about this a little bit later. They get to try to avenge their only loss and stay at number 4 going into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I will with the USC also. And I think it's because what had to happen, right? The game happens early. The game happens early at noon. So you have all day to sit on that game, look at the results. And players are human. They're going to look at the scoreboard. They're going to see, okay, they won by this much. How are we impacted by that game? So they had to hold serve, in that game. And if they lost the game or they were even close in that game, then we're questioning USC. We're asking thoughts about the Trojans. And, if they lose, I think at that point, the playoff is out of the table. Pac-12 game or not, it would have been too late to kind of make up that ground. Plus, by winning that game, they then bury LSU, who lost at A&M, and then are set up to play Georgia this week. So that means that, hey, bye-bye, LSU, you're gone. Yeah. I thought, in my opinion, that it was going to close the door on Alabama, who's iced out of the SEC title game, but maybe not apparently because the biases are real. Some bullshit. But I think overall with, as far as USC goes, they luck out too because now you don't have to play in Oregon or Washington in the Pac-12 title game. So they got helped tremendously based on the schedule, the outlook. They got blessed, man, in many ways. So I gotta agree with you. The Trojans definitely helped themselves out last week. And to kind of carry USC a little bit forward here. So this week, our Saturday spotlight, as you said before, the rematch of Utah and USC once again. For those that remember, man, this is those that don't know, man, you and I are in our green room per se. We talk about these games, and I know we agree. And just heads up for you guys tonight, the Saturday spotlight and the upset special, Tyler and I both agree on both of these games. So you guys know, I'm not going to bury the lead too much on that one. But in this one, I mean, we had it circled in particular. So I think this is the Pac-12 game. And now your rationale for mine might be different as to why it's the Saturday spotlight. But I kind of let you start first, because I think my idea is a little bit different than yours. Yeah,
so our Saturday spotlight is actually Friday for people that don't know. The Pac-12 game is actually playing on Friday. So I got a couple of notes here. So Utah, they're basically set up to play spoiler. 3-loss team going against number 4 team in the nation as the Trojans. During the season, Utah beats USC by a score of 43-42. Cam Rising gets that 2-point conversion at the very end to go up 43-42. And it was a crazy offensive game. Both teams went over 550 yards in total offense. USC is in control of its own destiny, like I said earlier, and looking to make its first bid in the college football playoff, which is huge for such a blue blood college, especially one with Lincoln Riley. A lot of people said, like, hey, it's going to be a couple years there at USC, but he's got his recruits, he's got his transfers. They're coming in, and they're poised to be there if he stays there. Next 3, 5, 10 years, possibly. A loss to Utah team will undoubtedly spoil what they want to accomplish here, since Utah is a 3-loss team. And like I said, it's Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams' game to lose. And can their defense step up against Cam Rising and the Utes?
I think for me, because you talked about where USC is going, and I think that's a great segue for me. Because when USC got those recruits, they got those players, and of course Lincoln Riley, right, the big fish in the pond. When you got that person, we thought, yeah, it's gonna be a couple of years. They're gonna adjust because they've fallen on hard times. You think about the regime of Clay Helford, the regime of having the guy before that, Sarkisian. Like, they've fallen on hard times. So we thought they had to pick themselves up out of the ashes to kind of build themselves up and emerge out of that mess. It happened really quickly, thanks to, of course, the transfer portal is a big deal. Lincoln Riley, of course. And again, the schedule was very favorable for them this year. So I think not just the future of USC, but really for them, this game is looking back on where they've come, because they're not here without some strife too. Like, they've fought to be where they are. And I think that's what it is. Since the game happened with these two teams back in October, USC has been tested. One-score games against UCLA, Arizona, California. And then whereas Utah, from the Pac-12 side, aside from the loss to Oregon, they've kind of been giving it to the Pac-12 a little bit. So you mentioned Cam Rising, but he's kind of been not so great ever since that game. So you said he had 415 back in October. Since then, he hasn't posted above 250. And the game that he was really bad in was Oregon. So I think where the game ends up to be kind of a wrestling match is the Utah running game. Last week, Jaquindon Jackson, Micah Bernard, both apiece averaged over 100 yards. So I think it wouldn't stun me if USC tries to overcompensate to stop the run, but all of a sudden you get hit in the back end with a play action game to Dalton Kincaid, who's a very, very nice tight end prospect.
Yeah.
I think, and no pun intended, but the Trojans' Achilles heel is their defense. So since that game back in October, they've allowed 32 points on defense per game, which is, again, is kind of, I guess, expected at this point. And I think overall, if they get sucked into a game where they're caught off balance by the play action, you better watch out, because that might be a game, and hence why it's my Saturday spotlight, but on a Friday, like you said.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, crazy stuff. So here's the upset special. So I'm gonna let you go ahead. I said a whole lot in that last segment, man. So you can go introduce the the upset special and why that is. Go ahead and let me know.
So I've been kind of up and down on TCU and USC, the Big 12 and Pac-12, and here they are. They're always in our Saturday spotlights. They're always in our upset specials. So, I'm taking Kansas State over TCU. Before the Iowa State game, TCU had won its last 7 games by 10 points or less. In the regular season matchup with Kansas State blew an 18-point lead at halftime, and they lost to the Frogs 38-28. So playing close games, it's eventually gonna come back to bite you. It's like you're flirting with the devil, and it's especially hard when a team has already seen what you can do, and now you're coming back in for that second time. And Kansas State is a pretty formidable opponent for them. So I think you're like I said, you flirt with the devil a little bit, and it's eventually gonna bite you.
Yeah, and I think the reason why, and look, we're not trying to pick on TCU. That's not our intention. That's not our objective here. It's not. But you look at what's going on with TCU also. Kansas State. I look at the quarterback change too with Will Howard. He's been pretty sharp and lights out since they made the move. He's played pretty well. The running back Deuce Vaughn is kind of nice, man. You guys talked about him in the group chat. He's like Darren Sproles. He's electric. So that's kind of another equalizer for them. Plus, I like some of their defenders as well, man. I like the size they have at cornerback. You guys don't know about the cornerback, you should look him up, man. Julius Brent's 6'4" guy, very big, very long arms. He's a good matchup. Quentin Johnson is back this week. And Felix and Nduke Uzoma is their pass rush guy. So I think they can create enough pressure on Max Duggan. They could also impact the passing game too, to where you might have a game, man. So don't be shocked. Horn fans, we're not hating. We're just telling the facts as we see them. So that's where I kind of stand on that one. And you know what? This is not on the show sheet, man, but I had a question for you.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned it earlier, right? With Stroud. To me, so we can lump Stroud into the conversation if you want. So I said, and this is one last thing that I had on the show, which was out of these outings, right, in the conference title games, and not, of course, not Ohio State at this point, but I do think that your Heisman winner is going to be whoever does the best in the Heisman, not the Heisman, but in the conference title game, that being Caleb Williams and Max Duggan. Is that how you see it playing out also?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Caleb Williams because he's just been so electric all year, and it really helps that he has Jordan Addison and then such a quarterback friendly offense with Lincoln Riley. We've seen it with, he's made Baker Mayfield a Heisman candidate. He's made Jalen Hurts a Heisman candidate, Kyler Murray, and it just moves right on into Caleb Williams. So we know it's a very quarterback friendly offense that's run there, and he's taken full advantage of it. So I believe it's his to lose in this game.
I do too. And I think every Heisman needs that play, right? Every Heisman needs that wow play. You have the Reggie Bush play with Fresno State. He had his with Notre Dame last week. That scramble was just incredible, man. It is one you put on the highlight reels that the voters see it and like, yep, that's him. That's him. That's the guy. So yeah, man. So you're saying that your guy's Caleb Williams, right?
Yeah. I think Caleb Williams is gonna win the Heisman.
Wild, man. Wild. And you think back to our first show, we talked about the Heisman contenders, and we had two guys at USC on that list, him and Jordan Addison.
Yep.
But never in a million years Max Duggan. So we'll say that pans out, man.
Yeah.
The things you know, man, the more you know, I swear, man. But any last thoughts, man, before we head up out of here?
No, it's gonna be exciting. There's still a lot hanging on to this conference championships this weekend. Friday and Saturday should be good ones. So that's what I'm excited for.
Absolutely, man. And guys, once again, thanks for watching. Hit that like, hit that sub button. You guys already know what it is. It's the Freshman 15 back here alongside Tyler Moore. And once again, I'm LP Cruz. As always, peace.
Peace.